What's going on, guys? Mr. Jones, once again. I just wanted to go over the homework slash classwork with you guys, just so you guys know what I expect of you. So I'm going to do just a small little portion of this first problem. So before we do this problem, I forgot I wanted to give this to you in your last notes, but it's okay. I'll give it to you in this notes. I want you guys to put a nice table of the parent function. So here on the screen, you'll notice a table. This is the table of the parent function. Remember, y equals x squared. Okay, that table represents that function. That's going to be extremely important. All of the movements you make from one point to the next, you get from this table. So please make sure you write down this table. In the table, you do have the vertex here, so I'm going to label this point as my vertex. My vertex is 0, 0. Okay. And then you can see I move over 1, over 2, over 3, over 4. So these are my left slash right movements, of course. And this side is my up slash down side. Okay. So I'll give you an example of what we're talking about here. All right, so if you notice here on Desmos, you can see this table over here on the left. I went into the negatives because the negatives, you'll notice the exact same thing is happening. So at -1 and +1, at +2 and -2, you'll notice that the further away I go from the vertex, my numbers just repeat. That's because your vertex has the axis of symmetry that passes through it. So if I was to graph the axis of symmetry, it would be right there, a dotted line through the vertex. Okay? But the key point of all this is to get us to understand that this table is going to help us because they show us the movement. So remember how I told you the table was, this is my vertex, 0, 0. So there it is. Now from the vertex, the rest of your table you drew looks just like this portion. Okay, so look at your table. From the vertex, your x value tells you left and right. So over 1, up 1. So from the vertex, over 1, up 1. And there's our next point. Again, from the vertex, over 2, up 4. So from the vertex, over 2, up 4. And that's going to be how you do all of these. That's how to kind of read the table, understand what that means for the graph, and so forth. All right, so with all that being said, let's get into the problem, and you'll see why this is important. So in the very beginning of the assignment, I think it gives you a graph of the parent function, but it's not a very good, clear one. So make sure you draw this graph from Desmos that I just showed you on a graph paper somewhere as your first graph. And the very next thing it's going to ask you to do, and it tells you this in the instructions, is to create an equation. So A is your equation. The A right here that I just circled is your equation. Your B section is your graph, and then you have a C and D, you have 2 questions. So you really have 4 parts to each one of these questions. The very first thing I would do before I did anything else is go ahead and plot these points. So you have X here and Y here. So you can just go ahead and start plotting the points. -3, +2, put a point. -2, -3, put a point. -1, -6, right there. And then there's your next point, and then so forth, right? So I'll just go ahead and finish plotting these points. And it's pretty easy once you get 1/2 because they're always the same height on the other side. So once you know where your vertex is, you'll realize that the points on both sides are always the same height, and you can get them a lot easier. So you can go ahead and put the line through your graph. If you can probably do a better job than me on paper. And then you go ahead and say, okay, in what way did the graph move? Do this next. It should be pretty clear. And then after you do that, say, okay, I'm going to write the equation next. And then lastly, what part of the equation indicates this move? So because of the way the graph moved, you should know how to change the parent function. Remember, you always start off with the parent function, which is right here. And then you say, okay, how do I change this equation to accommodate the movement that I saw from my table? Okay. Also, I would like to ask this question even better. What part of the table? So what part of the table indicated this move? And so go ahead and add an E part because you should be able to see in the table your answer. All right, that pretty much sums it up for this assignment, guys. So go ahead and get to it.